All right, guys, checking our setup here. Okay, so Nick here with What Game Now? We got us a hobby stream. So before I get going too deep, I just want to point two things out. First off, my lawn care guy got a little delayed and is going to be slightly interrupting our stream in a few minutes, so I'm going to have to step away for a couple minutes and get him sorted out. Also, I have dogs, so if you hear barking, that's what that is. Second off, for reasons that I'm not entirely sure what's going on, the camera slipped around. So this is my right hand. The camera's flipped everything 180 degrees. I am not sure how to fix that. We'll do what we can. So let's go ahead and get started while we're waiting. Go ahead and pull a few things up. And all right. So before we get going, quickly summarize what we're doing here. We got a bunch of new coalition models to paint here. We're going to be doing my desert camo scheme. So getting them essentially at this point, if they need to be clear coated in decals, but that'll be it by the time we're done. And I also wanted to mention, I got a discussion with somebody on Discord in the Heavy Gear Discord, and they had a question or were unsure what the difference was between a model that's primed and a model that's undercoated. This model's undercoated, this model is primed. So the difference is the intent. A primer's job is to adhere to the material to give your paint something to then adhere to on top of that. If you ever want to try it, imagine if you ever painted a house or painted a car or something like that, you have to prime it. That's what the primer is going to do. Is it's going to bond to the original material and give your paint something to work off. So this model right here has been primed black. I use a Krylon primer. The undercoat is the first layer of paint that goes on it that serves as a base for your other colors for you to build up. So, for example, these guys have been airbrushed with a Games Workshop color called Xandri Dust on top of the primer. And this is going to serve as a color I'm going to build off of, and this is undercoating. The reason I think there's a lot of confusion on that front is Games Workshop, because of their plastics, polystyrene plastic's the one that you don't always have to prime. You can actually get tolerable results for most people just by painting over plastic. I don't recommend it, but hey, it's a thing you can do. But because of that, a lot of people think that their spray paints are also primers. They're not. You can always tell a primer because a primer has a little bit of a texture to it. It'll feel a little bit rough to the touch. Anyway, with that aside, let's go ahead and actually get on to the painting part. So I've got a selection of paintbrushes here. What we're going to be doing is a technique called stippling. And we're going to be stippling two colors. Citadel Dryad Bark and Vallejo Game Color Bone White. And that's going to go over our Xandri Dust and create our camo pattern. So let's get going. If anybody has any questions, I can see the chat. Doesn't appear to be a delay, so that makes life really easy. So what we're going to do is we're going to, I have a off-screen plastic card palette right here. Get some paint on the palette, get it on the brush, and then we're just going to stipple lines over the model. Now, one thing to be careful when you're doing this kind of a paint job is how does the model look at any given time? So when you're painting camo, like you'll notice what I've done here, and I really need to fix that. If the turret on this tank was straightforward, the idea is that this would all line up. So we're just going to continue across them, slowly doing the stippling motion. All I'm doing is just stabbing the model. So go a little bit on the side here. Connects in there. And you can, the more you go in one area, you can get it bigger, you can make it smaller. The more you press into it, the more intense the color is. So I think that works. And we're just going to keep going and doing this across all of them. This tank's nice because it's kind of already got its turret in a neutral rest position. And what you can do is, like what I'm doing here, you know, this tank's got all of its camo lines in an actual line. And then I'll do one model where it's completely random. And that's part of the fun with camo, is you can just kind of do whatever. So let's move that across. A little bit in the corner here. And hi, there's our next one. As you can see, this is fairly fast. Doesn't take too long. And we'll just do random ones on this one. So we'll go in there. If you're curious what brush I'm using, this is just a little piece of junk I bought at insert generic hobby store of your choice. There's nothing really fancy to it. I just looked at it and it came in like a $5 pack with a couple of them. One downside of this technique is it will kill your paintbrushes. Brutally, horribly murder your paintbrushes. And we'll get a little bit on the underside here. I don't usually worry too much about the underside of models, but this thing hovers, so I figure it wouldn't hurt. And want another, a lot of blank space on this model, so let's fill some of that in. As you can see, this doesn't take that long. It's fairly quick. I'm also going to do this to the infantry. These infantry are called sand riders in game. And instead of stippling lines over them, I'm just kind of mashing it on. Mostly the nice thing about painting camo is you actually don't have to be that detailed because camo. Well, nobody's got any questions so far, so I'm just going to keep talking. Lawn guy isn't here yet, so when he gets here, it'll be a couple minutes. Because he's also going to do some digging for us as well. Anyway, we had a question to maybe go through a little bit more on the tactics side of things. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the different units we've got up here. The infantry I'm painting right now are called Sand Riders. They are a new coalition infantry unit. That's notable because they have a slightly better piloting skill, which makes them harder to hit. And a lot of their weapons are corrosive. So they get a little bit of almost pseudo extra damage. And then they get all the normal infantry rules on top of that. So all in all, makes them a pretty reasonable infantry unit. The single guy on his base is referred to as an Ankareshi, which is basically a super commando. So with them done, let's go ahead and then we'll grab a Chasseur. So this is a Chasseur Mark II, which is a new coalition. It's a mass production year, but it's a little more of a rarer unit. There's a fair number of them in existence, but it's used predominantly by aces and highly experienced pilots. The reason why is because you will notice it has a jetpack. Makes it a potentially very difficult machine to pilot if you're unfamiliar with it. I have a little too much on there. Sop some of that up. Okay, looks better. High speed, low drag, their job is essentially high speed harassment. The ones I have built out are just generic variants. They are reasonably cheap for what they do, and highly flexible. I like my Chasseur Mark IIs. The gears, it's a little harder to get consistent lines on, so I'm just kind of doing what I did in the infantry, just mashing the camo pattern on there as I drop a paintbrush. The trick to camo I found is that the best thing you can do is be inconsistent. The other units we got here is we have a Samson APC. So this is actually a hover APC, a LHT 71, and a Fusilier. So the last two, the Fusilier and the LHT-71, are hover tanks. And I think I hear my long guy pulling up. So I'm probably going to have to step out here in a few minutes and just get him taken care of. And if you hear barking, it's my dogs losing their mind because somebody's in their yard. You know how that goes if you have dogs. Anyway, the hover tanks. Hover tanks are really cool because they're fast, being hover vehicles. But they're also tanks, so they get all the bonuses and the advantages of being tanks, which is generally powerful stat lines and things like that. So the LHT-71 has, the one I built has a laser cannon, which is a high accuracy, reasonably high power weapon, good range bands. Has a pair of missile launchers on it. They're actually rocket packs, but about the same difference. I'm going to switch it up here. We're going to go with the little more poofy brush now. So these next couple models will have a bigger pattern on them. Same technique, bigger brush. The Fusilier is just a low-cost vehicle, whereas the LHT-67 is actually a Earth vehicle, but New Coalition's weird and gets a lot of allies. So what their job is they're going to be used predominantly as harasser units and high-speed base of fire. So if I need to move from one position to the next and leverage firepower in one location or another, I can do that with the hover tanks. See the difference? Controlled, incredibly random. And I mix and match it just to make the models a little more interesting to look at. Get my lawn guys out there. So he will need me in a little while. He is mowing right now, so no big deal. So that's the hover tanks. This guy here is a BOA, which is actually a Southern model. It actually started life in the South. But because of production issues, and they basically couldn't get the thing working the way they wanted to, they just dumped it. Said, hey, we can't make it work. Anybody want to buy it? And one of the New Coalition companies said, yeah, sure, we'll take it. It is a high-cost, ultra-high durability fire sport unit. If you've watched our 150 threat value North versus South video, it is equivalent to, say, the Grizzlies or the Cobras that were in that game. But it's much more durable. It has a higher armor stat. It's actually harder to cripple because it actually has more of its hit points are in its hull. So it's actually harder to cripple it. I think one of my dogs just figured out that he's here. So we'll see how the barking goes. All right. Anyway, so the BOA, that one's built as a Firestorm variant. It's got a rotary laser. Decent combat machine, really durable. The group of models I'm working on right now are called Hussars. I got 3 of them because I'm a completionist and I'm insane, so don't take that as a indication of how many you need. Anyway, the Hussar is a artillery walker. It's meant to be a high-power gun platform. Yeah, that's fine. And I've built 3 variants here. The Spear, the Javelin, and then this is a Hussar Hammer. So let's do crossed. The cool thing about this technique is it's very flexible. There's no consistency to it. In fact, the consistency is by definition its own inconsistency. That's what I love about it. Makes painting really easy because I don't have to worry about, well, you know, how much of this color did I put on the model? Just put it all on. All right, well, there's the Hussars. Hussars are just artillery walkers. The 3 variants I've got right there, we have the Spear, which is dual heavy rocket packs. Heavy rocket packs are really good. 2 of them is really, really good. Because its length gives it added accuracy. And then all the Hussars have a rotary cannon. So decent range bands. That one's particularly a little bit more shorter ranged, but good for target saturation. The Hammer has a gigantic piece of artillery on the back. It's actually a direct fire tank gun, and its job is just to punch holes in things. Again, it's got the rotary cannon if it needs it. And then the Javelin, I believe it's a Javelin is what's called. The Javelin has rotary cannons on it, an extra set of 4. They're linked. They're really good. It fires like 6 dice. Really good gun, and then it's got its regular rotary cannon. All told, makes it a really annoying machine to deal with. Okay, so our first layer of camo is done. Next, we're going to go to Vallejo Bone White. Now, this color is a little more transparent, and that's okay. Yeah, my dog's just figured out that my lawn guy's here. So if you hear barking, I apologize. So it's a little more transparent. Sweetie, calm down. Hey, calm down. It's okay. It's a little more transparent, so the effect is going to be a little more subtle in the end, especially as time goes on. And what this is going to do is it's just going to go over the models and add a little bit of brightness to them. And then we're going to promptly shade all of it down and lose all of it. Now this stuff I do not, I don't do patterns with. It's just mash it on. I found that this stuff, because of how transparent it can be, generally looks better if you just kind of dab. If you just do what I'm doing, no rhyme, no reason, just apply. Also makes this part really fast. There's our infantry. And then let's hop over to the chasseurs. Same thing. Just randomly mashing it on. Like I said, the more intense you do this, the less intense you do this. It's actually good if you mix it up. These guys are getting a little bit more in some places, and it's being more intense in some other places. Keep it coming over to our hover tank. I need a wee bit of water. And if you overdo this, it's totally fine, because what I can do is go back with my original color, which is Games Workshop Xandri Dust, and then just stick it back on there. Do exactly what I'm doing, but back with the original color. Like I said, I don't worry too much about the undersides of the vehicles. Just get the color on there. When I first did this paint job, I thought it looked terrible. I really did. And it wasn't until I did the shading on it that I'm like, oh, actually, no, that looks really nice. Well, nice with an asterisk. It's deliberately a very fast paint job. The goal of this paint job is to have me get an army on the table very quickly. And Take the brush out. It's getting a little full. General tip: always keep your paintbrushes clean. Makes life so much easier. Switch to a slightly larger one. And repeat. I might go back on him and that one and put a little bit more brown on it. I probably will. This is not an exact science. This is just kind of put stuff out there and see what happens. All right. As I throw models around. A couple other bits and pieces going on. It's been a little bit crazy on my end because of the whole school thing. So I haven't had the quite the desired time for video content. That should hopefully be changing here soon as things start winding down. A lot more stuff's established and dealt with. Like I said, we're going to do a few more videos. We're going to do keep going with the model review series where we talk about different models and such. We'll do the South Army box. As I'm throwing models around today, I'm doing a really good job, guys. We're going to do the South Army box. We're going to do all the different Army boxes. And if I think about it, we can even photograph the models I have done up because I have painted examples of all of the plastic starter boxes. All right, there is, oh, I got to do the detail. I didn't mention it. This is called a Varus. It is a VTOL. It's actually used by both the New Coalition and the South faction. It's an aircraft. Well, it's a VTOL. Its job is essentially high-speed harassment. It's got a nice little laser cannon and some rockets on it. All right. Argentina, wow. Thanks for tuning in. All right, I wanted to go back to the brown a little bit. We're gonna grab the bigger paintbrush and then just way too much paint. Just a little bit more brown on that. All right, hooray. So other things we're going to do, we're going to shade all of these, and then we're going to paint things like the weapons and all that. So we're going to go ahead and start with, we're going to start the infantry. We're going to paint their weapons. This is Vallejo Game Color Extra Opaque Heavy Charcoal. Recently did this game, love how serious tactic it is, but I don't know where to start. So, yeah, so Dave's on there. He popped it up there. So Heavy Gear Blitz actually has a free PDF rulebook. There's currently an edition change going on. So there's going to be, it's on 2.0 right now. It's going to go to 3.0. It's in layout. David just linked it to you. You do need to have a forum account with DreamPod 9 in order to access it. So if you go on there and it doesn't give you access, it's because you actually need to have an account. And once you have an account, you can download the rules and read them. It is not pretty right now. They're in the process of essentially making it into an actual book. Right now, it's a giant document. All right, so what I'm doing now is I'm just painting weapons. Just a quick little bit of this heavy charcoal. What's going to happen with heavy charcoal is the weapons are going to look black when they're done. It's going to turn out black. And sorry, let me scoop this in a little bit so you guys can see a little better. I don't spend a lot of time on infantry. It is just I don't find it worth it. They're so small that I just don't spend a lot of time on them. So I'm just painting their guns. I am going to paint their face masks. I am going to paint, some of them have a pack. And I am painting their weapons, and that's it. Keep it nice and simple. Because there's so many of them. Yes, that is the only book you need, is that rules document. You just have, it's right now it's in Microsoft Word. That is the only book you need. All of the other books you see are for older editions of the rules or the role-playing game. All you need is that one, well, okay. There is the Word document on the forums. There is also an Excel page where there's some Excel stuff, which is the model stats. Again, if you want to wait a couple weeks, they're going to put up a new version of the rules. Dave, if you can, link them to the Facebook page for DreamPod 9, or they'll post when they have the rules done and where you can download them. But yes, to answer your question, that's the only book you're going to need. Just keep in mind that it's not actually in book, right? It's not a book right now. It's just a giant Word document, and then there's some Excel sheets that have to go with it, which is like the model stats and things like that. That's one of the things I like about DreamPod 9 is I've played 40K, I've played Infinity. Only needing one book for everything feels so good. It's so nice to just go on there. I have one document, and it's the only document I need. It just makes life so much easier. Yeah, so David posted the 2.0 rules. Those are the ones that are being replaced by the thing that is on the forums that he linked. But where that drive-through RPG link is where the new rules are going to be available. All right, let's paint some backpacks. And then the infantry will actually be ready for their wash. But anyway, back on the topic of rules, I like that it's one rule book. It is a living rule book, so you do have to keep in mind that they are going to post, semi-regular updates to it. But I'm okay with that because it's still just one book, and it's free. I mean, you got a free book, and they updated it. I mean, I'm fine with that. It doesn't bother me. Some people get really bothered by it, though. They don't like the rules changing, and I've never completely understood that. Oh, while I'm thinking about it, if you're interested, DreamPod 9 is currently having a 20% off sale right now on just about everything Heavy Gear Blitz. because basically they're social distancing here in the U.S. and in Canada. I do not know about Argentina. You have to apologize. The U.S. news doesn't really cover that, but with all that going on, they've actually got a sale going on right now for 20% off pretty much everything Heavy Gear. It's terrain's not on sale. The only thing I've noticed for Heavy Gear that's not on sale is terrain. But it's just 20% off is pretty good. Yep, so these guys, once I get this done, they're just going to get it wash and brown, and I'm going to do, they have face masks, like a gas mask. At least on some of them, I think. I'll have to look at the artwork. That way, just keep cranking them out. The nice thing is with Heavy Gear is because it's Heavy Gear, it's not infantry focused. Once you've got your infantry, you don't really have to get any more. If any of the game round gets some Ataris, good luck. Good luck swapping Infinity to Heavy Gear. It is nice though. Heavy Gear or Infinity is rolling out their new edition this year. I believe it's N4 is what they're calling it. But you know, hey, new edition of Infinity is always nice. I like Infinity. I really do. I just don't like the fact that it's 330 pages of rules. I counted one time. I actually got out all the documents, sat them all down, looked at them, and counted, and there were 330 pages of rules. And that did not count any of the model profiles. So just your rules was 330 pages long. And like I knew it was long. I'd always known that. But until I sat down and counted, I never truly appreciated just how long it is. And while it's a really good game, it drives me nuts. I have hope for Code 1. My only complaint with Code 1 is literally none of the factions I own are in Code 1, at least right now. At least, like, I have Infinity and JSA and Ariadna for Infinity, and it's kind of annoying because, hey, Code 1 looks cool, but neither of them are in it. They'll get there eventually, but for now, it's like, you know, Code 1 essentially doesn't exist to me. Which is sad because I like the potential of Code 1. I've played Beyond the Gates of Antares, but I've never really like gotten too deep into it. I don't have a problem with it. I just locally I have to pick my battles. I have to be careful what games I push or how many of them I try and push because, you know, people get tired. It's all 40K and Age of Sigmar as far as the eye can see here. There's a few Infinity players. And there are a few X-Wing players, and that is our entire gaming community. So we're trying to grow Heavy Gear. I think we got a few people who are interested. it's just all 40K. Don't get me wrong. I don't hate 40K. I think it's got some very serious problems. And it seems like I have trouble talking to 40K players when it comes to other game systems. Because for a lot of people, 40K is the only game system that they've like put any serious effort in. It goes for Age of Sigmar too, but predominantly 40K I've noticed. You'll talk to somebody and you do hate 40K. I understand what 40K does. 40K brings a lot of attention to the hobby. I have heard 40K referred to as baby's first war game, where, okay, you've played 40K, now you know what's going on. Let's go look at the other games that are actually like good. Now, I will say this. Yeah, the amount of money they find to be normal to play a game. Well, it's funny because the opposite happens that I've noticed. People will complain endlessly about, like, I play War Machine, and you'll be like, a box of 10 guys for $80. Okay. I'm not going to lie that that's not cheap, but the difference is in other miniature games, you don't need so many guys. Okay, I priced out, I play Sisters of Battle in 40K. I priced out my with the new Sisters of Battle how much stuff I need. I kid you not, it was $900 for a single list. $900 for a single army that I'm kind of hoping is good. I think it's good. I think it's got a lot of potential to it. Sorry, I need to pull out my reference here. Okay. I think it's good, but you know, that's a lot of money to put down. But then those same players will scoff at, you know, hey, here's this heavy gear game. Yeah, a single model's, you know, $20 sometimes, you know, with the bigger models. And oh, by the way, they're metal. Like, oh, well, that's not okay. But you're spending $150 on a knight. It always amazes me. Anyway, I will say this: the version of 40K that I do like the Horus Heresy. I legitimately do like the Horus Heresy game. Which, if you're not familiar, is essentially an older version of 40K, but with some tweaks. And I like the Horus Heresy. It is a very tactical game. There's a lot to it. It's got some problems. To be fair, every game does, but it's got its fair share of problems and then some. But on the whole, I don't know. I like the Horus Heresy. The one I cannot stand, I can't stand Age of Sigmar. I can't do it. I tried. I have a Deepkin army. I tried. I gave it a good try. I can't. My problem with Age of Sigmar is entirely mechanical, though. I think it's a terrible miniature game. Everything that I don't like about miniature game, with one exception, is present in Age of Sigmar, and I'm waiting for them to do that. I don't like true line of sight. The alternating turn structure, I don't mind. Yeah, so he mentioned that he used to sell it. David actually used to own one of our stores around here, so he actually did used to sell 40K, like, as a business. Anyway, my issue with Age of Sigmar is I don't like. I do not like true line of sight. I also do not like the random turn order, not for the reasons people think. I don't like the random turn order because the hero phase, where your heroes use their powers and all that, heroes in that game are just, they're too powerful in my opinion. Like, I watch Age of Sigmar games and I just watch, it's just heroes punching each other. I mean, it's like this. It's like Sauron at the beginning of the first Lord of the Rings movie, where he's just mowing down guys. And I never found that appealing. Like, one guy who does that is not the end of the world, but like I've played the Death Armies, who it's like, oh, I have the best summoning in the game. I ignore a bunch of rules, and all of my heroes are combat monsters. What's not to love? Well, everything, because then you play against it and it feels really bad. But anyway, my biggest problem with Age of Sigmar is because of random turn order and the way the hero phase works, the back-to-back turn is just so backbreaking in too many games. How's it going? But yeah, between that, like comically blatant power creep, like I get it, power creep's kind of unavoidable, but then there's like GW power creep where every single book is a massive spike in power. Literally, my Idoneth Deepkin went from one of the stronger armies in the game to almost unplayably bad in the space of like a month. Now, okay, I don't mind, the faction being nerfed isn't the problem. It's how fast that happened. And that just, it really didn't sell me on that. Yeah, it's intentional. But like it's intentional, and they don't even try to hide it. But then there's people who will sit there and argue with you that they don't. Because, oh, well, this one book came out and it was subpar. Well, if you ever notice, they tend to buff the things that don't sell very well. Which always blew my mind. It always blows my mind that they would buff the things that don't sell very well. Because they would then sit there and argue with you that, well, they're not a miniature company. People buy their models because they look good. The miniature is a side product. Okay, I'll accept that. But then they'll turn around and use power creep to sell models. And it's like, really? If the rules don't matter, then, like, why are you doing this to the things that very obviously don't sell very well? Quickly go screen here. That just, it always blew my mind. How they sing? I wonder that too. It also annoys me because, like, they try to pass it off as unintentional. I remember when Age of Sigmar came out, a couple years after it came out, I was in the. So, fun story. I had never been in a Games Workshop store until I think it was 2 years ago, maybe 3. I have to go back and look, but I had gone, almost 20 years in gaming at this point. And I'd never been in a GW store. I've only been in 2 of them ever. One was in Omaha, Nebraska. The other was in Des Moines, Iowa. That was it. That was literally it. Those were the only 2 GWs I had ever been in. And I was having it. I used to work in one, yeah. So I can accept League of Legends doing it, because it keeps a changing meta. There's a good and cogent reason why. Okay, they want to keep the game from feeling stale. Games Workshop's doing it purely for sales. And I get it that League of Legends is doing it for sales, but not directly. It's not like, hey, let's buff the thing that's not selling. They're like, no, let's buff a thing that is going to encourage more meta diversity and things like that. They recognize that a healthy game, at least I think, is a good game. Anyway, back to the GW story. Yeah, that's kind of where I look at 40K, is you can't take it seriously. My problem is if I'm looking to have fun, I want to have fun. And I am a very tactical player. When I look at a game, I'm looking at where's the tactical depth. What am I going to get out of it by playing it? And that's why I just look at 40K and Age of Sigmar and just go, no, I'm not a fan. Anyway, back to my GW story. I was in there and I was talking to the guy, and basically the topic came because I'd always wanted to ask somebody from GW, like, why did Age of Sigmar launch with no points? And he told me and looked me in the eye and said, well, they always intended to launch with points. People just didn't give them enough time. I didn't say anything, but when I got in my car, I literally laughed. Because, like, Games Workshop released Age of Sigmar. It had no point system. They made no indication whatsoever that they intended to release a point system. They never announced it, nothing. It was only when the General's Handbook actually came out that points were available. And I've heard from people on the inside that basically it comes down to they're in the UK. And because they're in the UK, if you don't do a lot of, or I'm talking to people who are international, the US and the UK have very, very different approaches to wargaming. The US is a little bit more on the competitive side. They want a good game. And this extends to more than just miniature games. Okay, there are other games that do that. It's why Magic the Gathering is the biggest trading card game in this country. It's because it's the more tactically balanced-minded game, whereas Yu-Gi-Oh! Is just that kid, that game that 4-year-olds play that, they watch the anime. There are very few serious competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Players. I mean, I don't have a problem with that system if it had been there from the get-go. Working on a hand against a CCG, there actually is some games out there that do that nowadays. But they're designed to do it, and that's part of the game from the get-go. If that had been available day one, maybe. Although I don't trust GW to balance it that well. But yeah, I'm actually okay with that system. In fact, that this model that I have out here is for a new game from Privateer Press called Warcaster, which does that kind of hand of units thing. You start when you play a game of Warcaster, you pick 15, 8 or 15 units depending on the game size, and those are summoned into the table as time goes on, and when they die, they're recycled. And having played it, it's actually a really cool system. Yeah, I'm totally jazzed for it. I'm getting into the Eternus Continuum faction, the ones that are kind of like the almost undead zombie guys. And I'm going to paint them as a nod from Command and Conquer, so black and red. And then I'm even going to base them with green crystals and all that, and get some custom decals run off. That's going to be an interesting paint job, because the whole point is to try and finally get myself to learn how to paint black, and I am doing wonderful at painting myself today. The green faction, yeah, I'd have to go back and look. Anyway, I'm getting the ones that they're like almost undead, but they're not. They're humans who are trying to go for immortality. One of their warjacks has a crab claw, and they just show the render for the heavy, and it's like 5.5 inches tall or something ridiculous. I looked at the model and said, ooh, that's going to need some reinforcement. Anyway, yeah, this guy's on for painting. But yeah, we're going to be painting Nod from Command and Conquer, which should look really nice when it's done. All right. Tell you what, let's touch up these guys. and then get the shade going on them. So quickly do some touch-ups on these, make sure everything looks okay, and then we'll do the shading. And by shading, I mean get a giant brush out and dab on a bunch of brown wash, because I'm lazy. Quickly, whoop, whoop, whoop. But yeah, like, yes, I have infantry. We have a whole bunch of infantry, actually. And what you can't see off screen is if we get done, I have Lizard Rider cavalry. The nice thing about DreamPod 9 with the infantry is you buy like 1 pack of infantry, and then you get all the infantry. Beyond the Gates of Antares, Beyond the Gates of Antares, I didn't mind it as a system. The models were okay. It plays like an older Warhammer, I guess is the way to describe it in terms of the design philosophy. It's not that it didn't really catch on with me. I didn't think anything special about it. You know, the theme was okay. There wasn't anything that was a huge mechanical draw to me. But locally, nobody plays anything around my area unless somebody is there with extra models. And it drives me nuts. So yeah, that's my commentary on Beyond the Gates of Antares. Yeah, GW box games not getting supported. Blackstone Fortress getting some support. Shadespire gets some support. Hey, 30K actually isn't that bad. Just soft ban Custodes and Thousand Suns, and you're fine. I actually like the Horus Heresy. You just got to be careful with it, because there's some things in there that are unintentional. Well, Forge World is more incompetent than malicious on their design. So fun fact about the 30K, yeah, most of it's Marines. There are actually multiple non-Marine armies. You can play Cult Militia, which is Imperial Army, Solar Auxilia, and Mechanicum, and now Demons are available in the Horus Heresy. Anyway, back to the commentary on their box games. Yeah, I wish they did, or I wish they didn't suck at supporting them. I wanted to like Titanicus. I really did. My problem with Titanicus is there was just nothing there. They launched a $290 boxed game, and then the only thing available for it were the models in the $290 box game. And I just came out of it and go, you know, like maybe in a couple years, when there's more stuff to it, I'll come back and give it a shot. But for now, Titanicus was a no-go. Blackstone Fortress, I don't mind, but is very much a board game, so it needs to be treated as one. I actually like Necromunda. Yeah, see you later. I like Necromunda. The problem with Necromunda is everyone has to understand that it's Necromunda, and it's not meant to be taken super seriously. It's kind of like Blood Bowl. Blood Bowl is an amazing game if you understand that you aren't supposed to, like, care. Dumb things are going to happen. Stupid things are going to happen. It's basically you have to understand from the get-go that it's supposed to be a train wreck. Necromunda is very similar to that. We've tried to run. We actually ran 2 Necromunda campaigns locally. And get this. So we ran 2 Necromunda campaigns. Okay. Our first Necromunda campaign lasted 8 weeks. The final battle between the top 2 gangs, and I am not kidding, The final battle between the top two gangs was between my Escher, who in the entirety of the campaign never lost a battle. Not one. Not a single fight. They never lost a battle. Every engagement they were involved in, they won. And they won handily. Watch it. What? Yeah, so what happened was that the paint mixed with the wash, and I accidentally mixed in there. Anyway, it was my gang that had never lost a battle. We won every single one. I was one of the top two. Okay, well, that's not terribly surprising. I trashed everybody that I played. It wasn't even fair in some cases, mostly because they... When they launched the game, they had a rule called Toxin. And it just said anytime you hit somebody with a weapon that had Toxin, you rolled a casualty. You use a wet pallet. I want to get a wet pallet. The problem is every single hobby shop I have ordered a wet pallet through locally has not gotten it for me, and it's driving me nuts. So at this point, I'm going to be getting it online, but with the whole situation right now, that's a little difficult in some cases. Anyway, back to the Necromunda story. So I'm doing the math because I'm the one who's running it. I'm the one who's got all the books and has put all the time in to say, okay, here's who's won what, and here's what the stats are. And I double check my math when I see who I have to fight because it makes no sense. I look at it, I'm like, no, that can't be it. My opponent for the last round of Necromunda, I have tried the Tupperware and parchment paper for some reason, just didn't quite work out nice enough. I think I just need someone to show me how to do it. But yeah, wet pallet's definitely on the list, especially when that Warcaster stuff comes in. Anyway, with the Necromunda, so I do a double take. Like, who am I supposed to play against? Really? My opponent was the guy who had never won a battle. And not like never even won. Like, he never scored any points the entire campaign. Because in Necromunda, you gain reputation. That's how you determine who the winner is. The problem is reputation is gained by both parties regardless of the result of the game. So the game doesn't actually matter. So by the time the dust settled, I am facing off against somebody who has never even scored a single victory point. And it's at that moment I looked at it and said, you know, I knew this was probably broken, but that's the thing, though. I was the referee, and we didn't know this going in, and it didn't quite like gel with us exactly what was going to happen. But when we got there, Lena said the top two teams, the top two gangs, are one that has never won a battle and one that has never lost a battle. We promptly looked at it and said, yep, this is broken. We wrote a page, it was like 3 pages of house rules. Because we found other stuff that just made no sense. There's one mission where you collect loot crates. Okay, cool. What do you do with the loot crates? Absolutely nothing. You don't get loot. So we made a bunch of changes. It went over fairly well, but the problem we had was we had somebody who didn't quite appreciate that Necromunda was not supposed to be taken seriously, and essentially refused to have the referee to acknowledge the referee. So like I would tell them, it's like, hey, you know, we've soft banned like half the equipment of you're taking, or have come up with changes to it. And he just, no, that didn't work. That's why I get on the forums for DreamPod 9 and I rag on it and stuff like that. That's why I don't like rule sets with questions. I like clearly defined rule sets that are designed to work. I want to see a game work first. That's why when I play games, yeah, okay, the model quality is a factor. The factor that's most important to me when I look into a game and saying, is this something that I want to play, is how are the rules? How much does the company care about the rules? And that's what led me to eventually jumping boat to Privateer Press and where I am right now. I talk to people, it's like, oh, but the models look so cool about this, oh, look, I play Warhammer. Why? Because the models look cool. You know what? Hey, if that's what you want to play, that's fine. I don't care. I am not touching Warhammer unless I have to. I don't want to. It's okay to have issues with the rules because here's the thing, they're open to working with it. That's been readily apparent. Rooster's done a really good job of they're open to discussion. One thing I will say that I have noticed with the heavy gear community is I think a lot of people want tactical back, or at least the majority of tactical back. So a lot of the commentary that I see on the forums is like, oh, we need to do this and this and this. And like the goal of Blitz is to create a faster playing, larger scale rule set. And then I see, there was a Discord discussion a few weeks back. They actually pulled like Heavy Gear Blitz used to have turning rules. Like, okay, well, your model can only turn up to 90 degrees or it counts as an inch of movement. And they pulled it out. And I'm happy about it because realistically, what did it add? It added bookkeeping. It didn't make the game better. But then somebody necroed that and like, oh no, we need to totally have turning back because it's this fantastic aspect that made Heavy Gear. And I'm like, I like to argue about that. That's all. Well, I mean, no arguments then. Hey, what do you think though? Hey, they're fairly good about it. You do bristle about some of it. You know what? What do you think? I'm curious. No commentary. Well, okay, I can't promise no commentary, but no argument. I'm curious to hear. And by the way, I'm not advocating creating like the world's dumbest rule set. Okay, I don't like 4-page rule sets. They tend to cause more problems than they tend to solve. But like, I brought this up on the forums today. Started a thread for it. I was reading the VTOL rules because I got my Varus right here. And I was really looking at those rules, and I'm reading them like, why? The current rules for VTOLs lets you pick the exact height elevation of the models. And my question is simply, is that necessary? Like core quick qualities, I think is what I was talking about this one. Maybe. Certainly possible. And that was probably the turn discussion. I don't think you brought it up. I think it was somebody else. But I remember reading, it's like, I get what you're saying, but my question is, what does it add? Yeah, talk about it on voice. Yeah, I mean, like, I get the argument for turning, being, okay, hey, it should matter here more for this, and it should matter for this. My question, and I've raised this comment in a number of places because I've seen a bunch of questions came up. Because if you look back on the forums, somebody raised a question about morale. Like, why does Heavy Gear Blitz not have a morale mechanic? And the short answer that, for me was, what do we get out of it? How is the gameplay improved by its presence? I mean, my counter to some of that is like, hey, I don't see anybody advocating to count ammo and clip size anymore. That's just me, though. I mean, I don't know. Easy to describe? Yeah, I mean, a lot of rules are easy to describe. No comment there. It's very easy to describe a lot of rules. My question just comes down to it's not ease of learning, it's what is it really adding? And that was my discussion with like why I brought up VTELs. Morale would deeply change the game. I think it would. I don't have a problem with a morale mechanic. It's just every single proposal that they had for morale at the time, the person who brought it up, was that all or nothing style mechanic that you kind of see in games like 40K. Where it's like, either everything's fine or nothing's fine. And then they'd also like the entire system was purely detrimental. Okay. I would much rather see, if we're going to talk about a morale system, one that not only punishes like a poor morale state, like, okay, your troops are broken, but to also include options for a good morale state. Okay, your troops are in good shape, that's helping them. Increase distinction to movement ties urgency. Sure, I completely understand that point. Is it worth it? Because remember, with the way that movement works now, you don't pick movements anymore. Yeah, I mean, I get it, but like, you don't pick movements anymore. You don't pick movement ratings. If a model has walker and gear or walker and ground, it gets both movement ratings. And that was part of that change. And I'm not entirely sure I agree with that. I actually think I much rather prefer the. Wow, I completely blanked. I think I prefer the split movement ratings, but I don't know. That's just me. I look at Blitz from the perspective of not what should be omitted, but what should be included. That's just me, though. And that's the whole point, is where everybody has a different opinion. What I really think they need to do is I really think they need to revive tactical. I really think that they need to revive tactical. And what that would do is it would give an outlet for people who want both, or people who want one over the other. Because I think a lot of the issue comes down to that Blitz is really the only heavy gear system out there right now. I have not played tactical, mostly because I'm from the more newer generation of gaming, I guess is what you could call it. I've played like the original BattleTech, and I wanted to gouge my eyes out because it was not an enjoyable experience. I do have. I mean, if you didn't know, if you don't find any Blitz any faster than tactical, I don't know. Like I said, I never played tactical, so I don't have any experience on that front. Yeah, old BattleTech is painful, but they came out with Alpha Strike, and it's like, oh, Alpha Strike's going to fix everything. And then I opened Alpha Strike, and I'm like, no, you didn't fix anything. But to me, it's not that I like a simpler system. I just like not having to worry about things that are unnecessary. And that was my whole bit with the turning thing, is like, okay, I get turning. I get that it adds discussion and it adds, hey, decisions. But at most, you're losing 1 inch of movement, maybe 2. Is that entire system worth it to model 2 inches of movement? And that's just my opinion when it comes to games. But yeah, anyway, I really think that Company versus company. Like I said, I don't know. I'm not familiar with tactical. But I think tactical should be brought back. I think that they need to come out with... I think a lot of the friction in the heavy gear community about the current state of heavy gear comes from the fact that there is only one product. If you want to play heavy gear, this is the only heavy gear you can play. If you don't like Blitz, but you want to play heavy gear, you're kind of SOL right now. There's nothing there. But I see a lot of the feedback that's Blitz related seems to be, you know, hey, we need to add this thing back in that was in Blitz or in tactical, or when heavy gear made the change. Every rule should have a distinct point, and all the choices you made should be meaningful. They should be meaningful, and they should actually be impactful. And like I said, that's my thing with turning. That's why, like, if anybody recommends that they want to bring ammo counts back, I will fight them for that. Because I don't want ammo counts in. Like, I get it. Yeah, okay, you can argue it's tactical, but at the same time, again, what am I really adding? But yeah, all that comes down to, I really think tactical should be revived. Even if it's like we're keeping the system, but we're updating it with the new models, and we're updating it with maybe fixing a few things. Yeah, it was optional, but I mean, it was also because it was optional, the most recent version. Like I said, that's the kind of things that I look at. Anyway, like I said, I want to see tactical come back, because then you can have a split system and say, okay, Blitz is this, or tactical is the system that is meant to simulate a detailed combat environment. It includes as many rules as we can reasonably think of. I thought that was the point of the living rulebook. You still use your army, but need to mod them. Yeah, but I think we're talking the old tactical rule set, the one that Blitz replaced. So the list that Blitz replaced doesn't have the newer models in it. So if you were to go back to that content from, what is it, like 2003, you're not going to see almost anything on here. Yeah, like I said, I would like to see them basically acknowledge that tactical is still a thing. Because can you actually buy tactical on the website? I don't think you can you? Like, tactical isn't even available for sale more often than not. I don't know. But anyway, like, I would like to see that spread, because then you could sit there and point somebody in the direction and say, okay, Blitz is the game system that's meant to be simpler, less detailed, and any rules included in Blitz are there to enhance the game. There's a reason for their inclusion. Tactical, you can go the other way and say, we've included pretty much any rule you can think of to create that simulated combat environment. We've only chosen to omit one. Wanted to model out the detail that just got in the way of gameplay. That's fair. But like, I could see them argue that, okay, we're going to omit this rule because it, you know, it bogs it down too much. Yeah, if I was given charge of Blitz, I am 99% sure I can get Blitz down to 20 pages. I really think I could, if they just let me have it. I can get Blitz down. I really think I can get down to 20 pages. Just a much faster, cleaner rule set. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that Blitz actually needs to go further on the simplicity. I really think that perfect world, I'm given control. What do I change? First off, I think I redo army construction. No more primary, secondary units. You just pick a primary UA, a secondary UA, similar effect, but basically faster. I think I keep the objective mechanic and all that. I quite like it. I think the movement rating system as is, I would keep. I would just say you have to pick one. Do you want to hover? Do you want to walk? Or do you want to grab? I don't think that's an issue. It's buried out there. I have to go find it. But I condensed the entirety of electronic warfare down to 3 pages. That entire chapter of the book, 3 pages, and two of it is just the order summaries. The entire electronic warfare section I gutted down to a single page. I changed nothing. It's entirely in presentation. So question addition. I see what you're saying. On the other hand, like I get what you're saying, but at the same time, modern gamers, as much as we like Heavy Gear, I think it's safe to say that it can't just survive on its existing community. It has to have something to draw in new players. And if you look at the trends right now in gaming for the games that are doing really, really well, it's not more rules. It's easier to understand rules. Let me rephrase that. Can you show that EW page? I'll have to go find it, but we'll see what we can do. Also, double check with the dev team and make sure that they're okay with me sharing it. But yeah, it's David, who's modding the chat, actually has a copy of it. It's literally 3 pages, and 2 of it is just the summary of the orders. And I changed nothing. Nothing got changed. And I feel like I could do that with the entire game if I was given the chance to. I do agree. How do you keep the essence of the game? I mean, you got to define what that essence is first. And we're in kind of a weird situation because we're the players. You know, part of it is, what does DreamPod 9 think the essence is? And you know what? It's okay for it to be a little different. Yeah, agreed. Keep it simple. Don't do anything crazy. Less things to remember is better. Again, one of the reasons why I'm not the biggest fan of turning is like, why? Few modifiers, which, like I said, I think Blitz has the potential to be there. I really think it could go a little further. That's just me, though. But if I was given control of all of Heavy Gear, that's what I would do. I would take Blitz and simplify it even more. And then have, okay, here's Tactical. Tactical is its own thing. Blitz is more gamey. Tactical is more simulation. Tactical is going to have all that nuanced depth of, okay, well, you have to deal with turning your model and things like that. And then I'm going to have Blitz be that game that we're going to cut a lot of that out. It's going to create a simpler gaming experience that's, hey, if somebody plays it and says, I want more, there's something for that. Yeah, visuals are a thing. I think the rulebook's going to have those. Like I know there's tables and all that. Oh my gosh, this thing's so huge. And I have 2 more to paint. This is one of the reasons why I keep it simple. I get a big model like this. I kind of want to just get it done. Oh, also one thing I think DreamPod 9 needs to do is get somebody on the RPG that will actually finish it. Because I've actually talked to a lot of people who played the RPG. They just don't now because of things like availability and things like that. Louis says, Heavy Gear Blitz, Super Michigan, not very friendly to new players. Is it 2.0 or 3.0 are you referring to? Because 2.0, I mean, my personal opinion was kind of a disaster. I'm a veteran miniature gamer, and I couldn't teach myself 2.0. And I mean, like, I've been playing miniature games for almost 20 years at this point, and I couldn't figure out 2.0. 3.0, I think you have to understand that right now it's not actually presentable. And it isn't the simplest rule set in the world. Once you get it, it's very simple. If you do want, though, you can go check out the What Game Now YouTube channel when we're done here. We actually have a full playthrough of a 150-point game. You can see the game getting played, and there's even a tutorial before that. Yeah, that's my thing is, like, the fact that, like, there's Blitz implies that there's something else because it's called Blitz. I don't know. I would revive Tactical if I was DreamPod 9. Especially considering a lot of people who play Tactical don't have any complaints with the rules. You know, to my knowledge, I don't know how many changes you would need to make. As far as I can tell, you wouldn't need to make that many. Bring it back and then say, hey, if you're an old-time Heavy Gear player, it's got all your new stuff in it. Here's your more detailed gaming experience. And then let Blitz go its own independent direction. Because I think that also would clear out some of the noise. Because, I don't know. Again, personal opinions. I do also think that they totally need to bring back that RPG. Although I think the RPG would need a little more work. I've talked to some people who played it, and all of them said the same thing. They liked it until they had to do trigonometry. At that point, they went, you know, this is fun, but like I want to play the game, not do a math homework assignment. I never played the RPG. That's just what I've heard from people. I don't RPG game at all, actually. I just don't like RPGs. It's just me, though. I don't like RPGs. I get why people like them. I like playing video game RPGs. But I can't play a physical RPG. I know why. Like I said, man, I'm just going off what people have told me. I've heard some commentary that it was a little too mathy. Now, I don't know what edition they were playing, if previous editions mattered. That's just me. Like I said, I don't have that information. That's just what I've been told. Cannot vouch to its accuracy or validity. All right, what do I got here? You're ready for washing. Yeah, that's a good point. I actually have a master's degree in mechanical engineering. So when people tell me like something's too math heavy, sometimes I don't understand. Not because I don't empathize with them, but because like what they're doing, I don't actually consider math. Like there's no derivatives in it. How hard can it actually be? Which can mess with things every once in a while. I'll hear somebody say, oh, there's too much math. And I'm looking at going, there's math in this? Like you mentioned, there's like square roots you have to do. I wouldn't need a table. I really wouldn't need a table to do square roots. That's just called Tuesday for me. I mean, if you're going to start asking differential equations, I might get a little annoyed. But you know what? On the whole, it'd be not the end of the world. But anyway, that's just my own personal insane opinions. Yeah, we got a bunch of sand riders done. If the camera focuses all right. They look a little dirty, but that's kind of the point. These guys, you know, yeah, they're turning out just fine. I always say that because I always think my own stuff looks terrible. And Savant, if you're the person I think you are, like on Facebook and all that, like you paint way better than I do. Like I think this looks terrible. I acknowledge it's terrible, but put some optics on there. Who else needs it? You need optics. But yeah. What I need to break down and do is get some custom decals run off for these. Oh, okay. I guess not then. I'm sorry. Somebody contacted me later who did a lot of other stuff and had a similar like username somewhere else. So my apologies. Anyway, but yeah, I just but anyway, we'll keep on there. I guess a little bit more info about what's going to happen next. So these are going to get clear coated. Nice and easy, lazy clear coat. I use Testra's dull coat and Testra's gloss coat as my two preferred clear coats. Truck needs a little more work. So they're going to get clear coated. It's usually 1 coat gloss and then 2 to 3 coats of dull coat. And then in addition to that, I need to do the decals. Yes, custom decals are fantastic. It wasn't, this is the first time I've really gone through and put a lot of decals on. And now I'm putting decals on everything. We were talking earlier about that Warcaster stuff. I'm actually getting custom decals run off for that. How to paint Caprice infantry units. If you're painting them in the normal gray, I mean, Caprice infantry, if you go with the regular colors, are just gray. I'm sorry, not Caprice. Caprice is red. Like tactical paint, olive drab, and khaki. I just continue that in the infantry then. Yeah, if they're olive drab and khaki, I would just continue that in the infantry. Let me grab one of my other infantry bases here. Excuse me, I need to try and not run over dogs. So there's my regular infantry. Super fast, super lazy. Just 2 colors of brown and hey, you're done. All right, there's a little bit more detail on that tank, on that truck. All right, optics. Looks like optics on here. Oops. We'll call that optics. Take some pics and upload it? Sure, we can do that. Like I said, my paint jobs are meant to be fast. I do not promise that they are like set the world on fire amazing. Their job is to look good in situations like this, where you're looking at them from something of a distance. Red. Okay. Sorry, looking at my. I already did one of these, so. Guys, if our power flickers here, I'm sorry. I just heard a gigantic rumble of thunder. We are supposed to, in my area, get severe storms. Shouldn't be too bad, but you never know. It's weird. My area of the U.S. is notable for, we joke that you can't trust the weather because the weather's only accurate for 5 minutes. That's actually why my lawn guy's out here so late. Yeah, I like hanging out with Lucas too. I mean, I'm trying to do these somewhat regularly. It's more of like, what do I have to paint? What am I working on? Right now, this is all heavy gear. And actually, this is my entire backlog of stuff. So once all this is done, all my NuCoal will be done. My Utopia has been painted. It just needs to be based. Still got the Lizard Riders off camera somewhere. So they're over there. I got about a dozen bases of them. I mean, depending on how things go, I might just not finish these because it's not like I'm getting a lot of games in right now because, you know, social distancing and all that. I might just hold off on finishing these and do them next week. Or at least finish them off completely. Because what still has to happen is you got to see the Utopia sometime. I'll have to go get them. They're way over elsewhere right now. All I did with them is they are Army Painter Uniform Gray with GW Caliban Green, and then just wash the whole thing black. Because, hey, sweet laziness. Yeah, what we're going to do... Oh, we've been going for an hour and a half already. That's pretty good. We'll probably close this off at the 2-hour mark, just for sanity's sake. And then I'll leave this stuff out and we'll finish it next time. But what still has to happen is I still have to clear coat everything. That takes a couple days, depending on, you know, the quality of the clear coat I'm using. And then I got to do decals. We actually can do the decals next time as well. You can see Slow Fusilier here. Faction logo, number, little new coalition there, and then it's got caution symbols on each of the vents. But yeah, I kind of want to get some custom decals run off for these guys. The biggest challenge that I've had is, number one, physical size. How big do they need to be? And the other one is I need somebody who can do some graphic design work and like doesn't charge money right now. Because I have this idea, I always call these guys the desert ghosts. I would like to do like one of those stereotypical like children's ghosts. It looks like a bedsheet or something like that, holding 2 revolvers with a cowboy hat. And then do that as the unit logo. But alas, I think that's all the red. Oh, no, we could do the Voltigeur. Just up top, okay. Anyway, that's what I want to do in terms of decals. If you're in the U.S., I don't know if they do overseas, so my apologies. But if you're U.S. based, I would highly recommend Fallout Hobbies. I don't know what their overseas situation looks like, so if you're overseas, I am not entirely sure. But Fallout Hobbies, while not cheap by any stretch of the imagination, I think it's like $60 US. Yeah, he probably ships to Canada. But it's like $60 US for just the first round for a single sheet of decals. But every reorder is only $15 a sheet. And the sheets are huge. They're actually fairly large. They're not much smaller than this Army Painter thing here. Yeah, okay, there's more thunder. We are getting some storms. And I might have just heard hail. Okay, well, that's how my day's going. But the nice thing about what he does that I like is he actually does a little bit of rework for you. He will go in, and if there's some issue with the render you gave him, he'll actually do a little bit of work on it to make sure it turns out nice. And I greatly appreciate that because I am not a graphic designer. So by the time you're done with his services, you know, it might be $100 US or something, but I've always found it to be very worth it. He has done decals for me for War Machine. He is working on decals right now for Warcaster. Privateer Press's Warcaster. And I mean, I've used it for a bunch of projects. Does a really good job. I've been very happy with the quality. Question, link in description is posted in full. Can you please clarify what that means? No, Matt, I have no idea what you're saying. Like link to Fallout Hobbies? Yeah, I don't know if David can go find that, but it's David, if you just want to Google Fallout Hobbies, or we can post it on Facebook or something. But yeah, that's what I've noticed is it's like you get literally hundreds of decals on a single sheet. So you get a lot of them. He actually does some work on it. Like, he won't do full custom jobs, but if you give him most of it, he can get you the rest of the way there. That's what happened with my Warcaster stuff. Is I had the base image, I had a quick MS Paint sketch of what I wanted, and he was able to just like, yeah, sure, give me like 10 minutes, and then cranked it out and said, okay, here you go, and laid it out and said, hey, does this work? And that was that. But yeah, it's 60 US for the first sheet of decals, and it's 15 each for each one after that. So I actually found the price point to be very, very appropriate. And he'll even do multiple designs on a single sheet. I think he'll do like up to 2 designs for free. And he's also got just like standard like number decals and things like that lying around. I've really enjoyed his stuff. I've been very happy with every order I've gotten from Fallout. All right. You're ready to clear coat. You're ready to clear coat. All of you guys are ready to clear coat. You're ready for clear coat. You guys can get some. Oh, there's some stuff I can do there. You're ready for clear coat. I'm not actually done painting these, even though they go into clear coat. I have yet to find a clear coat that doesn't interact poorly with metallics. So there's some metallics that are going to be on a lot of these models, and those are going to have to get painted in after the clear coat. I have yet to crack the coat on that. What about decals from factions? If it's the Heavy Gear factions, DreamPod 9 actually sells decals. Let me get these rocket packs done real fast, and I can show you mine. Yeah, I think it's like $6 a sheet or something like that. DreamPod will actually do decals. They actually they actually have decal sheets. Actually, one of my favorite decal sheets is for Heavy Gear Arena. You can get all the company sponsors, and I think it's really cool. Let me get a couple more missile packs here, and I will show you a DreamPod 9 sheet. I forget who does it. It's DreamPod 9 makes this. It's from Fighting Piranha Games. These are officially licensed decal sheets. I think they're like $6, which is a little on the expensive side for the number of decals. But, I mean, you got a bunch of numbers on there and other stuff. I actually quite like these. But that's what DreamPod 9 will actually sell you. Fallout Hobbies, like, define 4 to 6 sheets. Because the Fallout Hobby sheets are like that big. They're huge. I got a bunch done for my Space Marines. I don't see any in here right now. I'm sorry. We'll post a picture. I can post a picture online or have Dave post a picture. It's literally hundreds of decals on a single sheet. I didn't know how many to expect, and I got 7. And I'm pretty sure I don't have to ever order decals for my 40K Space Marines ever again. Yeah, no, my Heavy Gear DreamPod 9 sells this, literally this, for every single faction. You can get a North one. You can get a South one. This is the new Coalition one. But that is available from DreamPod 9 for every single faction. Or if you want to contact Fallout, I really only think you would need like 2 sheets, especially considering the size of the decal. He might get 300 on a single sheet at that point. Like it's crazy how much he can actually get on a single sheet. Yeah, I'll have to go get one. I don't have any of my decals for my Space Marines inside. That is all in my outbuilding. I actually have a hobby outbuilding. One of the advantages to the property I'm on is I actually have room for that. But that is actually in a separate building right now, and it is starting to hail and thunderstorm outside. So we will get back to you tomorrow on what the Fallout Hobby sheets look like. Missiles. We missile you. This needs some work. Jeez. We will. Okay. But yeah, Fallout Hobbies has been really good. I highly recommend them. Only downside is they could take a little while. I think my Space Marine order took 3 months. Yes, that was months in plural. Granted, that was a little long by his standards, but just be aware. But yeah, be aware if you order from Fallout that it might take a little while. It's good stuff though. Yeah, like I said, let me post a picture of the decal sheets. I know you need bulk, but I don't think you quite appreciate just how much is on a single Fallout Hobby sheet. I got multiple size decals for my Space Marines, like vehicle sized and everything. And I think there were 400 decals on a single page. And I got 5 because I didn't know. So my one comment with Dream Pod 9's decal sheets is you don't quite get enough. I go through a lot of decal sheets. But yeah, we'll grab pictures of that. I don't know if Luis is still in there, but I'm going to go ahead and also post close-up pics of my infantry on the Heavy Gear Blitz Facebook group. And I think since everything seems to be working, we're going to close this off here in about 15 minutes, but we're going to, I'm not going to finish these. I'm going to clear coat the ones that are ready to be clear coated, and that's it. So like this will probably go in for clear coating. That's ready for clear coating. The other two Hussars are not ready for clear coating. It looks like everybody else is, though. So then we'll have a couple Hussars to finish, and then also do decals and some metallics as needed. Other stuff going on, there's another video battle report in editing. It is a 150 threat value new coalition versus Caprice. What do I use for clear coat? Tester's dull coat and Tester's gloss coat. Everything gets a single coat of Tester's gloss coat. And then let that sit for a good long while in a well-ventilated room. I'd recommend inside. And then once that's set for a good long while, and by good long while, I mean like at least overnight. Sometimes I let it sit for 16, 17 hours just to make sure it's 100% dry and set. Then apply Tester's dull coat as many times as you need to get the sheen you want. Depending on, I've noticed that the dull coat can be a little inconsistent sometimes. It can take between 1 and 3 applications to get what I want, which is an almost completely matte finish. So Tester's dull coat and Tester's gloss coat. It's available at pretty much any hobby store in the U.S. Like in my city alone, which is fairly small, we only have 80,000 people. I can think of 3 places right off the top of my head that have it. Granted, a bunch of them are closed right now, but you know, hey. But we're gonna clear coat. What I do is I have a 1x2. I actually have 4 of them. And I got an 8-foot 1x2, and I cut it into 2-foot sections. So I have a nice 2-foot length of 1x2. Bring it into frame here. So 1 foot of 1x2. And then I put some double-sided mounting tape along it. So double-sided mounting tape goes down, and then the models are stuck on that. Now you may be wondering, like, well, does that actually do anything? Well, what it lets me do is it lets me flip it upside down. So I can actually spray under the model and get all the nooks and crannies. So I do that. I do that for priming and airbrushing as well if I'm doing the undercoats like on these. But yeah, so what will happen is they'll get at least 2 coats, potentially 4 depending on how good the dull coat is. And then once that's done, we'll go back and do the metallics. We'll do the decals. And then we'll do the bases. And is there anything else? No, that's it. So we'll do the decals, we'll do the bases, we'll do the metallics, and everything will be good to go. So let me... Done. Yeah, that's very similar to what I do. I do the decals last on these. I really should have done them first. The decals really should go on before the clear coat. But there was an issue that the original it took me forever to learn the magic of microsol and microset. This stuff took me forever to learn the magic of this stuff. Finally broke down and got it and got decals down and can do that no problem. But to be consistent, I do my decals after the fact on this army. My Warcaster stuff, which, in August you guys are going to start seeing me painting, it is going to get decals and then, gloss coat, decals, and then the dull coat, because that's how you're supposed to do it. I'm going to do it right on the next army, but for now, it's being done slightly out of order on these. I haven't noticed any issues with it. And what I do is I hit it with some Vallejo matte varnish, just out of the brush to get the shine off the decal. I actually have used this in place of dull coat through an airbrush. It actually works okay. But yeah, it took me forever to really learn how to use the decal setting solution correctly. But now that I've done it, I put decals on everything. Everything gets a decal, which I guess is a curse and a blessing at the same time. I don't know, but so we're starting to wrap up here. It's starting to get a little bit rumbly out here. So let's just kind of summarize what we did here. So everything started just blank. Everything just started blank tan. We did some stippling layers with Games Workshop Dryad Bark and Vallejo Bone White. Yeah, Vallejo Game Color Bone White. Wash all the models down with some Agrex Earthshade, and then you can see the vehicles. This is the finished one with decals and everything, and this is the not finished one. The basing, all I do for the basing is grab a model here. If you were here last week, you may recognize some Armadillo Riders here. So this is Games Workshop sand. Now, I don't like Games Workshop. The only products that I really like from them are their sand, which is the closest I've found to it, like regular sand. And then I also like their plastic glue. But other than that, I tend to avoid Citadel products. So everything's going to get sanded. It's going to get the sand. To put the sand down, Elmer's. Straight from the bottle, put Elmer's on, dip the model in the sand, clean off the places you don't want it, and hey, look, you're halfway done. Because this Elmer's is generic white glue, this stuff will dissolve in water. So what I do is I do one. I sort of popping outside. That's mildly concerning. I do one last coat of this with it's been watered down, about like 5 or 6 parts water to 1 part glue. Very, very watery, milky consistency, and then just kind of glaze that over all the sand. And what I found is if you do that, it helps keep the sand down, and the model looks great, and it keeps the basing material down. And then we finish it off with some Army Painter Wasteland Tufts. And then, hey, we're done. I also do that to the terrain. All the terrain I have is on bases that have a little bit of sand around it. You may have seen it in our battle reports. But yeah, there we are. We've actually got... I didn't quite expect to finish everything. That's not surprising. But, you know, hey, we got the infantry done, which is the part that I really, really, really wanted to get done. Because infantry is annoying because there's so blasted many of them. So what I'm going to do as we wrap up here is this is what we've done today, which is pretty good. Still have 2 Hussars that need black detailing and then also need the wash. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish those 2 hussars over the week. And then same time, same place next Saturday. So 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. We'll come back. I will clear coat all of this. So finish the hussars and clear coat everything. So everything will be ready for decals, basing, and metallics. So I think we're going to call it there, guys. Yeah, can't think of anything else to address. Dave, is there anything you wanted to say or address? Maybe. But yeah, and that will take us through. We'll try this again next Saturday. We'll do decals. We'll do bases. I am going to gloss coat the bubbles on this thing, the glass bubbles, or the canopies. So that will have some gloss appearance. Everything else is going to be matted. Yeah, like Dave said, if you're not following us already, please do so on Facebook. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We don't spam you, I promise. Couple things in the works. There's more model reviews in the works. There's another battle report in the works somewhere. Like I said, we're doing this at 5 o'clock. We might move it back to 6. I don't know. We'll see how things go. We might move it back an hour so more people can watch it, or if that's a problem, we can mess around with it. And yeah, that is it, guys. Have a good one. And I will catch you guys next time.